When you subscribe to WROK on YouTube, you never miss a meeting.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the October, 14th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The board does not write zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Petitioners should try their best to limit presentations to 10 minutes. Use variants require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variances requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant variances. In the absence of a full board at tonight's meeting, which we are missing one person, petitioners have the ability to request that their agenda be postponed until a future meeting date due to circumstances. Petitioners must inform the vice chairperson after the staff's presentation in the public hearing. All right, so roll call. We'll start in the bottom. Mr. Gavin. Please, where you're speaking from too.
Yep, I am present in Royal Oak.
Ms. George.
Present in Royal Oak.
Mr. Klatt.
Present in Royal Oak.
Ms. Zugan.
Present in Royal Oak.
Mr. Moore.
Present in Royal Oak.
Mr. Reddy.
Present in Royal Oak.
Ms. Robinson. Oh, you're muted. Still muted. Oh,
there we go. I'm sorry about that. I'm present in Royal Oak.
Okay, and this is Anthony Ofek. I'm also present in Royal Oak. All right. Agenda. Approval of meeting minutes for September 8th, 2021 and September 9th, 2021. Any discussion or comments, changes to them? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes? Mr. Gavin, I see your hand up first, and Mr. Moore for the second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 I'm gonna go back and add with virtual meetings we do need to we need not a audio.
That's fine.
Roll call, but yes. So please do.
Okay, fair enough. We'll stop then. Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Ms. Zukin.
Yes.
Mr. Klatt.
Yes.
Ms. George.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So that passes unanimously. There is no unfinished business that I know of. Is that correct, Mr. Murphy? Okay.
That's correct.
To new business, case number 21-10-43, 1805 Greenleaf. Mr. Murphy, whenever you are ready.
Very well.
Sorry,
so the subject property.
Joseph, if I could just be let in on my other computer, so I can. Thank you. Thanks. Apologize.
It's quite all right. So this subject property is located on the corner of. If I can share my screen, it'll be helpful. Subject property is located at the corner of Greenleaf and Fairlawn. It contains a 1.5-story single-family home with an attached garage, and the petitioner is proposing to construct a full second-story addition to the existing house, expand the ground floor of the dedicated to accessory floor area or garage space, and construct a second-story living space above the garage, attached garage area. I'll zoom in to give you a better understanding. They've done an excellent job with a survey and highlighting areas where they're proposing to conduct ground floor expansions of the existing house. So the modifications to the house result in a total accessory ground floor area. So again, everything dedicated to the attached garage, and I'll hover over it. This is the existing detached garage, and they're proposing to expand it in this hatched outline area. That resulting floor area equals 1,480 square feet. And we'll take a look at their floor plan. They've got some dedicated space to this accessory structure for battery storage, for solar power system that they plan on installing. They've got a traditional 3-car garage element and then a storage space area. The ordinance allows for a maximum of 800 square feet, no matter what the lot size is. And this is a fairly generous sized lot at 0.36 acres. So it's 15,765 square feet. By comparison, that's about twice the size of the average lot within the city. But the ordinance does limit accessory floor area to 800 square feet. And they're seeking a variance to waive 680 square feet of that maximum. I will jump to another page for some additional elements. This is representative of the front elevation along Greenleaf, and as you can see, they're proposing second-story living space above the attached garage. And the elevation and the floor plans are critical to identify the fact that from the second-story portion of the house, there's no way to access the second-story space above the garage. The only way to access the second-story portion of the attached garage is via an internal staircase at the ground level. Again, there's no way to physically, there's no hallway, no corridor that connects the two spaces, the two portions of living space. It's an unusual design, and it's, the petitioner can elaborate, but it's to achieve a maximum or greater amount of roof area in order to install the solar panel system that they want to achieve. But the garage is again physically attached, but we apply the height standard for a detached garage. And as many board members know, that maximum allowable height for a detached garage is 15 feet at the midpoint. And again, we applied that standard because there's no continuous living space to connecting these two areas. So the petitioner's proposed structure has a height of 22.5 feet, and they're seeking a waiver of 7.5 feet from that maximum allowable height. If the board does grant the variance related to the height of the attached garage, there's a second-story office floor area that's illustrated on the floor plan, and that would be included in the overall calculation of usable floor area. Because, as you can tell from the elevation and the floor plans, it certainly provides enough height clearance for someone to meet the building code requirement to be habitable or living space. It has enough height clearance to walk around. So this area is accessible again from the interior hallway on the ground floor. We don't consider it it does not constitute a separate dwelling unit. It's just a separate portion of living space that is only accessible via the interior hallway from the ground floor of the house. The petitioners provided calculations to show that the modifications to the structure result in a ground floor usable area of 2,050 square feet, and the usable floor area on the second floor above the main house, we'll say the main portion of the structure, is 1,800 square feet, and the living space above the garage is 750 square feet. If we calculate all three of those areas to a total, it has a total of 4,600 square feet in usable floor area. The ordinance permits a maximum gross floor area of 3,500 square feet, and they're seeking a variance of 1,100 square feet from that maximum. And I'll refer back to a different page for the last variance request. The zoning ordinance allows for a driveway, a residential driveway, to be no more than 25 feet wide at the property line. And there's currently a driveway to access the 1.5 car attached garage. That driveway will be removed, and there'll be a new driveway installed to access the, we'll say, the 3-car garage portion of the accessory structure. And the driveway width that's shown is 28.5 feet wide. So they're seeking a variance of 3.5 feet from that maximum allowable 25 feet in order to have a driveway off of Fairlawn. We did not receive any audio public comment. We did receive 2 written email public comments that are included at the end of your report. And the petitioner is here to answer any questions that you might have about their unique appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. See, Ms. Zukin has a question as well as Mr. Klatt. Go ahead, Ms. Zukin.
Okay, Mr. Murphy, I got a little confused. You said that we consider the garage as detached for purposes of the height restrictions, but we don't consider it detached for purposes of a habitable area over it?
Yes, and that is because, and I'll share my screen as a clarification on why staff applied in that manner. There is a hallway on the ground floor. So this is the ground floor. And the only way to access the space above the garage is via an internal staircase that's only accessible from the hallway within the house itself. So there's no physical way for there's no exterior staircase along the side of the garage. There's no staircase within the garage that leads straight up to the area above it. The only way to get to the second floor space above the garage is via this staircase on the ground level. So we don't consider it a separate dwelling unit because it's an integral part of the floor area for the primary structure. It's just an unorthodox design from what we're accustomed to seeing. But we'll let the petitioner elaborate on perhaps on why they selected to design it in that manner.
Okay, Mr. Klatt, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to verify that the overall lot coverage or footprint doesn't exceed 30%. I assume that's the case, but just want to verify.
Yeah, I do know that calculation was performed. Let me look for that.
Yeah, same holds true for the accessory component of that too, at 10%.
Yes, I can look that up fairly quickly here. One moment.
Thank you.
Sure. The accessory floor as a percentage of the lot is 9.4%. And the total lot coverage is 27.6%. So both below their maximum allowed. Well, as the board knows, the ordinance is tricky in the sense that the ordinance states that an accessory floor area may cover no more than 10% of the lot, and in no instance more than 800 square feet. So that no instance really applies in this circumstance, in that it's a much larger than average lot, and the 800 kicks in, we'll say, first before the 10% would even become effective.
So the last question, I noticed the petitioner, when I read through their letter, they indicated their square footage breakdown was a little bit short from what you had. They had 3,850, but when I added the 750, it seems to shake out to the number you described at 4,600. So I assume it's just what they were calculating versus what you were calculating.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the floor plan that they provided to show the space above the garage, and I can zoom in on it here. I'll share my screen. The floor space shows 2 portions, and they're both labeled as office slash storage. And again, they have that full height clearance under the building code to be recognized as a habitable space. They don't show any plumbing fixtures, anything of that nature, but it's certainly a large enough space at 750 square feet in total. So we did recognize that as part of the overall floor area for the dwelling.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? Mr. Moore?
The area that's indicated as like a battery storage area, that area is considered part of the garage, correct?
Yes, I'll zoom in on that so everybody and everybody watching at home has an understanding of what you're referring to as well. There's the existing 1.5 car garage that they plan to repurpose to remove the driveway and to repurpose it as battery storage related to equipment for the system that they plan on installing. And I'm certain that they can provide, greater clarity on the need for that size and how the system functions and things of that nature.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious if that was counted as part of the garage because it's part of the old garage, I mean, versus being like a utility room type of a thing where typically like furnaces or such would be stored. Is there not a distinction for that type of space?
Well, a furnace room would typically be located in a basement, and if it was on the ground floor, it certainly wouldn't be 275 square feet in area.
Okay.
So we did label it as accessory floor area because it's accessory and that it's equipment storage for a wide variety of things, but they did label it for their battery storage.
Okay, thanks.
It's not traditional living space.
All right.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, the petitioner may go ahead and present. Please address who you are and your address, please.
Yes, thank you. It's Woody and Andrea Gantina. We currently reside at 1422 Edgewood Drive in Royal Oak, and I'm here with my architect, Brian Howard.
Brian Howard with HF Architecture at 512 North Main Street in Royal Oak.
Thank you.
So thank you for the opportunity to bring this before you today. Our family has lived in Royal Oak for over 14 years, and we've fallen in love with this city. As our family has grown with a 14-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son, so have our needs. We're very grateful to have the opportunity to stay in Royal Oak and build our forever home, the project that's before you today. My background is in sustainable design and construction, and it serves as the basis for this project. From having built the first 2 LEED homes in Oakland County over 10 years ago through to today, I'm extremely passionate about building the right way. I have the honor of serving on the Royal Oak Planning Commission and the Environmental Advisory Board. I'm also part of a task force working on the city's first sustainability and climate action plan. It is through this work and my longstanding passion that I recognize firsthand how we must rethink how we approach our built environment. And that's what this project stands for. We intend to build what we believe to be Royal Oak's first net zero energy home. The city has been very clear about its commitment to sustainability and even revised ordinances to facilitate the use of sustainable and renewable technologies. However, members of the community must do their part to combat climate change as well. And that's exactly what we intend to do. To accomplish this, however, the unique circumstances of this site require us to seek relief in a few areas. By granting this relief, you will be facilitating a project that will be used to educate the community as well. I will be filming a video series throughout the project to highlight sustainable strategies that can be employed in both a remodel or new construction project. And in coordination with the Environmental Advisory Board, making this series available for interested Royal Oak residents to view and learn from free of charge. I have reached out to all of the immediately adjacent neighbors to review our plan and have letters of support from several members of the neighborhood, as well as the Royal Oak Environmental Advisory Board and the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. To explain a little bit more about specifically the variances that are being sought, with specific to the maximum square footage, as Mr. Murphy had mentioned, the design is over the maximum of 3,500 square feet, but we are below the maximum lot coverage of 30% and within all of our required setbacks. Based on maximum allowable square footage, we would be allowed 4,730 square feet, and we are proposing 4,600 square feet. The discrepancy that was noted in our letter was really just due to a misunderstanding of how the square footage above the garage would be accounted for. With respect to the driveway, the 3-car garage and the 25-foot driveway width can be a little bit challenging. The 3 feet 6 inches of relief being requested provides approximately 18 inches of apron to either side of the drive when exiting a vehicle. The existing drive, as mentioned, would be drive and apron would be removed. With respect to the accessory building square footage, the existing home, the majority of which is being maintained in the new project, has an antiquated single-car garage. As part of this project, the space is being converted to a battery and equipment storage area. In addition, and again, within all required setbacks, is an additional storage area of approximately 335 square feet. This space is intended to be used for traditional garage storage of bikes, lawnmowers, patio furniture, etc., and will eliminate the need for any other sheds or structures for this type of use. If not for these 2 spaces, the accessory building would still require 70 square feet of relief. Like the square footage of the home, the proposed 1,480 square feet of total accessory building is below the maximum allowable of 10% of the lot, which would be 1,577 square feet. Lastly, with respect to the variance for the height on the garage element, as mentioned, our design places usable space accessible from the first floor of the home above the garage. A portion of this design consideration was to create as much west-facing roof as high as possible to maximize solar exposure. This is an effort to minimize how much of the west roof will be in shadow from the home itself. Because there is no internal connection at the second floor, this roof element is considered part of the accessory building and therefore subject to the 15-foot height limitation, not the 30-foot height limitation. The height of the new roof element will be 22 feet 6 inches, and no part of the design is above the 30-foot height limitation. A combination of utilities is not needed or being requested for this space. With respect to the evaluation criteria that this body may need to consider, I'd like to address that briefly. Item number 1, the ordinance restrictions unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for permitted purpose. For large lot designated properties, the square foot limitation unreasonably prevents a home size that could be considered appropriate when also being in compliance with the lot coverage ordinance. Item number 2, that the variance would do substantial justice to the applicant as well as to other property owners in the district, and a lesser relaxation than that required would not give substantial relief to the owner of the property or be more consistent with justice to other property owners. The requested variances will facilitate us building a sustainable home that remains consistent in character with the existing neighborhood. Granting of this relief would not create a significant injustice to other property owners, as evidenced by the numerous letters of support from surrounding properties. Item 3, the plight of the homeowner is due to unique circumstances of the property. The unique circumstances that exist on this corner lot, with much of the existing structure being maintained, and our goal of net zero energy require these requested variances. And lastly, the alleged hardship has not been created by any person presently having an interest in the property. I believe the ordinance that pertains to this necessary relief conflicts with itself. Many examples of large lot properties being granted similar relief exist. I certainly understand that every project before you is unique, but I believe that the hardship exists due to a conflict in the ordinance governing this issue. In conclusion, I'm excited to be bringing this project before you today. It is the culmination of decades of learning and work to build the right way. I believe that we have taken every reasonable approach to minimize the relief required, and significant unique circumstances exist that require the relief. Much of the existing home is being kept and remodeled to not only continue to be harmonious with the existing neighborhood, but to place a high value on the embodied carbon it represents. This in turn dictates the forms and placement of the rest of the project on the site. Living within most of the requirements set forth for this parcel, we believe that we have created a functional, sustainable design that our family and community can be proud of. So we humbly ask that you grant the relief being requested, and we're happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions for the petitioner? Ms. George, then Ms. Sukin, then Mr. Moore, and then Mr. Platt.
I just want to understand the battery storage. This is for the solar panels?
That is correct. So our goal of getting to net zero energy will more than likely require us to install battery storage as part of it. The amount of battery storage is actually still yet to be determined, and frankly is a function of the current rules that DTE has in place. There's a high likelihood that to meet net zero energy for this home, we will have to place several batteries within that space. But to answer your question, yes, the battery and equipment storage area is a part of the solar system that's being placed on the home.
So with things like environmental surveys, is that amount of battery, is that an acceptable amount of batteries to have in a residential property? I'm just wondering if something could leak, or I don't even know, is this like a regular battery?
No, these are, I guess these are larger, typically either floor mounted or wall hung batteries. In our case, again, not knowing the number of batteries that we will ultimately need to connect. And this is something that over time we could, add additional batteries because it's simply plug and play. We are currently determining the size of the system and doing energy calculations. They aren't small in the sense that they can't necessarily be tucked into a closet or anything like that. So what we've done, because this particular garage area being a little bit older, isn't necessarily conducive to modern standards and using it for a vehicle, we've converted it to this battery storage, and there may actually be mechanical equipment in there as well.
So are there environmental risks to having these batteries?
There's no environmental risk that I'm aware of, based on my research in general with battery storage backup systems. They're quite common, quite prevalent. I'm not aware of any unreasonable environmental risk that they pose.
Ms. Zukin?
Are you suggesting that in order to make this home sustainable, you need to go 1,100 feet over the maximum allowable square footage?
No, we're not necessarily asserting that the 1,100 square feet is a function of the sustainability. The 1,100 square feet of relief that we're requesting is really just a function of the design of the home. 750 of that square feet is the space above the garage, as we've discussed. Because of the way it's being treated, because of the attached, the odd way that it's counting the square footage, and it's yet still being considered an attached garage. If we set aside that square footage for a minute, the home itself is still 350 square feet over the 3,500 square foot maximum. To answer your question, the goal of sustainability is not necessarily predicated by the square footage or vice versa. And we're not necessarily making that connection that in order to build a sustainable home, we need the square footage per se.
So you could build a sustainable home maintaining it within the maximum square footage of 3,500 if you were required to.
I think there's elements of sustainability that certainly could be applied to the project if it was a different square footage, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Moore?
Yes, I want to ask a couple of questions about the room for the battery storage. Did I hear you state that the other equipment would be stored in there as well? Like, are you talking like bicycles and that kind of thing?
Not in that room. That's actually what the square footage on the other side of the 3-car garage is being proposed for. The battery and equipment storage room is really being sort of, I don't want to say cordoned off, but its specific purpose is strictly for battery storage related to the solar system and potentially mechanical equipment related to the heating and cooling of the home.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Klatt?
Same general question about the battery storage. I mean, that overall garage or accessory structure represents about 40% of the overall ground level. So I was trying to wrap my head around why it's needed, what's the hardship associated with that. And the drawings didn't really show the battery, so I just didn't fully understand it. But you explained it, so I generally understand what you're trying to do and what the needs are.
Yeah, and if I may take a moment to kind of, I guess, explain that maybe a little bit more without getting into too much of the weeds. The current program that DTE has is changed from their old net metering program. So in order to get to net zero energy, it actually forces us into a situation where not only do we have to have battery storage, but the amount of battery storage is actually increased because of the current system that DTE has. We do not get full retail credit for any energy that we're producing that goes back into the grid. So in order to get to net zero energy, we will need to actually store more of the energy that we're producing and utilize it before sending any excess back to the grid. This, in essence, forces us into a situation where we actually need to allocate more room for battery storage to try to meet that net zero energy goal than we maybe would if DTE had a true net metering program.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Robinson?
Do these batteries, do they have to be stored on the ground level? I mean, could they be stored in a basement?
They could. There's access issues with that. The storage area that we are proposing is going to be a slightly conditioned area. They do need a conditioned room to be in. Due to the size of the batteries, though, and then the number of batteries, which again for us is an undetermined number yet, it's definitely going to be more than one. Putting them in the basement typically becomes a little bit more difficult. And we just thought with this existing one-car garage being there on the ground floor, not really being able to be utilized for vehicle parking, it served as a great area for us to put these batteries that was very accessible and allowed for room for future additional batteries if necessary.
Go ahead.
I guess I had one more question. You had mentioned that the peak of the roof of the garage was like kind of there because it gives you the maximum solar exposure for your panels. Am I understanding that right? And then because the garage roof is so high, you've got all that space on the inside. That's why you're kind of using that space then to just like makes more sense to use it than just to leave it open and being storage. Am I right? Is that what?
Yes, your understanding is spot on. Yep. So that roof line, that west-facing roof line above the garage was pushed up to get out of shadow of the home itself. And in doing that, created that space. And to your point, we thought, well, we're creating that space. We may as well utilize it. It's actually, again, just serving as office space for my wife and I. Want to be very explicit about the fact that we do not intend to have it be an accessory apartment or anything like that. We are not requesting a combination of utilities or anything along those lines.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Gavin.
Sort of related to that, I was just trying to mentally process that. And this actually may be a question more for Mr. Murphy. If there was not that hallway connection between the main dwelling and that space above the garage, would that then be factored, like say there was a staircase in the garage that you used to access that upper floor, would that not then factor in, and I'm just trying to understand our ordinance and how that would be calculated. It would take that 750 square feet off of the overall dwelling square footage that we would be analyzing, and then it wouldn't be factored in the 800 square foot of ground floor for the accessory structure. I guess I'm just trying to see how it would change it if that was not accessible from the main dwelling through that hallway and was instead accessible through a staircase in the garage.
Then it would be a much, if you're referring to it being a lower profile roof. Excuse me.
No, I wasn't thinking about the roof coming down at all. Just changing how it's accessed.
If it was detached more so, you're saying?
Exactly. Yes.
It's possible that we could treat it differently. It always is dependent upon accessibility, number of utilities. So it's difficult to give you a precise answer. And we hope that in the future we have some much clearer ordinance standards. Right now, obviously, and as always, all those things are left up to interpretation of staff. One of those delightful hats that we have to wear. So we're looking, because we're seeing more and more instances of this. We hope to have a sharpened ordinance that's much clearer. But Yes, if it had different access, was a separate component from the main residence, and it had separate utilities, you're getting into the elements of it being a separate living space. But we don't believe that's what is shown on this set of drawings. A separate living area, but part of the overall square footage of the existing dwelling.
Okay, understood.
I
I'm
can't
sorry
say
for
that we've ever seen an instance like this. I can think of one on a very small lot that was extraordinarily problematic on an interpretation years ago, but this site is very different, and this is a totally different and unique appeal.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any other questions for the, no? Yes, Ms. Robbins.
I'm sorry. I just one other thing that you're asking to have the driveway waived at 3.5 square feet. And if you mentioned why you needed that 3.5 square feet, I missed it. Could you tell me again?
So it's not 3.5 square feet. It's actually
No,
3.5 feet.
yeah, right. Yeah.
So the reason that we need that additional width for that driveway is with the 3-car garage, the 25-foot driveway width is a little bit of a challenge. And I believe from, right now, from door opening to door opening, without considering the driveway itself, is over that 25 feet. So if you can imagine vehicles parked in either of the end spots of that driveway in front of the garage door, the 18 inches on either side, so the total of 3.5 feet, that simply allows for a vehicle to be parked on either end of the driveway, still be able to open their door, and have somewhere to actually step out onto. We could probably skinny the driveway down to meet the 25-foot ordinance, but quite frankly, it would get narrower than the garage door opening widths from end to end themselves, and just pose a really odd circumstance where you might end up exiting a vehicle and having to step into a grass area versus onto the driveway.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, seeing that, we're going to come to this side, but before we discuss, as you know, we're down a board member. We may get a full board next month, and we may not. Would you like us to proceed, or would you like to us to adjourn this to next month?
I'd like to please proceed.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring it back to this side of the board. Is there any discussion and or motions? Anyone want to start off with the first row? Mr. Moore.
Yeah, I'm just kind of having a hard time with all the extra square footage on the garage. So I'm curious if anybody else has any thoughts on that or any comments on that. I'm still kind of wavering on that.
Ms. Robbins?
The fact that I understand why they're doing what they're doing on that square footage. I mean, he could just leave that space unfinished, and then I'm assuming that's not going to be part of the square footage if it's not habitable. It's to me, it makes sense that they're making use of that space because it's there. I don't know what my thoughts are.
Mr. Reddy.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Ms. Robinson said, and I think they've done a really good job of designing it to stay, like they've said, within the setbacks and considering the size of the lot, staying under the percentages. It seems like a very well thought out design to me.
Thank you.
Is there any, Ms. Sukin?
I just don't see any practical difficulty with downsizing this a little bit. The 3-car garage with all that cement on Fairlawn. I know none of the neighbors have complained, but that just seems a little excessive to me. And the square footage, some of the house size could be, the addition in the back could be reduced in order to come a little closer to the 3,500. I think this is a big want, and there's really no practical difficulty as to why it's needed. So I'm having a problem with several of these variances.
that a motion then or a discussion?
Discussion.
Okay. Anyone want to take the first crack, Mr. Clapp?
Well, just a few comments. I think we understand the challenges with large lots and some of these ordinance restrictions. And our board has granted relief in the past for numerous projects with larger garages. We understand that. But I do struggle with the size of this one too, for some of the comments that were made. I asked a question about battery storage and I got an answer, but I don't fully understand why it needs to be so large. It's just it represents over 40% of the overall ground floor, if my math is right. So it's just a large garage. But I do commend them on staying below the percentages. It's less than 30% and it's less than 10%. So that's my only struggle with it. It's a bit large, but they did at least hold to those restrictions, our lot coverage restrictions.
The one comment I'll make regarding that, and Mr. Gavin sort of alluded to it, in the unique circumstances of, and I understand with this being trying to be a sustainable house, which there aren't really any examples here in Royal Oak of a net zero house. So this is sort of kicking the first bucket to see what is actually needed. And maybe in doing that, they learn maybe you need less battery storage area, maybe you needed more. So that's I can understand that sort of being a shot in the dark of just trying to decide, is that the right size for that? And then if this garage was detached, would that square footage above it actually go into this thing? And if it was not included, now you're just down, instead of 1,100, now you're down to 450. If you take out the battery storage area, that's 275. Now you're down to some change. What is it, 175 basically? So if this wasn't a sustainable house, you're just shooting at a little bit over. So I can understand there's a little bit of unique practical difficulties in this one and trying to be a net zero home. And I agree that the amount does seem big for asking, but it's also a first time for something like this trying to do in Royal Oak. So I don't know what's the right answer, but that's just my thoughts right here. Mr. Gavin?
And maybe I should have asked this a little bit earlier before we brought it back to this side of the table. One question that just occurred to me is all of this roof space necessary for having all the solar panels in order to effectuate the desired goal of a net zero home? So that, that's kind of a factor that I'm wondering about. And if it's okay with you, I'd like the petitioner.
We can ask the petitioner. Go ahead if you'd like to respond to that.
Yep. So one item that we did have to take into account is maximizing as much south and west facing roof as possible. If you look at the home's design, the south elevation actually has limited areas of roof area that we would be able to actually put solar panels on, not zero, but limited areas, which then leaves us with needing to maximize the west facing roof area. So we did take that into account in terms of how to design the roof plan itself so that we could maximize our ability to put the solar panels on there, but had to do it in such a way where we had to take into account what areas of the roofs that we were maximizing would have the best solar exposure. So to answer your question, yes, the amount of roof area that's here, specifically on the south and west areas, is necessary to get the number of panels that will be needed for the home.
Okay, thanks, because that helps clarify at least some of the square footage need in my head. Makes it a little more understandable. But I was looking a little bit at some of this stuff because my father-in-law just put in solar panels on his he's up in Chesterfield, so there's he doesn't have space zoning restrictions as we do, but so he was able to do it quite easily. But it's a very interesting and unique area that reaching a net zero seems to me to be a very different target than just getting a few solar panels and to reduce your energy usage from the grid rather than completely going independent, if you will. So
Did you have more? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Did you have more to add to that, Mr. Gunther?
Well, yeah, so actually I wanted to, it sounds like there's a little consternation over the size of the garage, as well as the comment about the driveway. I was wondering if it was okay to address those real quick.
If anyone on the board has a problem with that, no one does. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so the 3-car garage that we're asking for is really based on sort of the needs of our family. Currently, it's just my wife and I that drive. In the time that we're building this home, we will have a 3rd driver in the home. That is really one of the biggest drivers for having a 3-car garage, which again, we don't feel is inappropriate for the neighborhood in the sense that there's many 3-car garages in the neighborhood on these large lots. The other comment that was made with regards to the driveway and the amount of concrete related to it, one of the unique circumstances of this particular lot and the corner lot and entering off of Fairlawn is that we don't actually have a lengthy driveway that is in front of these garages. So while it is a 28.5-foot wide driveway, the depth of the driveway is actually quite a bit shorter than a typical driveway in a typical lot may be if it was going from the front of the lot all the way to the rear where the garage may be. So I certainly understand that there's concerns over the size of this, but again, we are doing our best to try to minimize impervious surface as much as we can. I would also offer that the overall square footage of the garage itself, I certainly understand that there's questions regarding the amount of square footage we're allocating to the battery storage. And I will be honest, the ultimate amount of square footage that we will need at the end of the day is still being determined. Even if we safely say that half of that space is ultimately what we will need, it renders the rest of that space very less usable for other storage needs, which is why the additional storage area on the south side of the garage has been designed in, and again, within the setback lines. So I understand the hesitation around the size of the garage. To be quite honest, our approach wasn't simply to design as big of a house as we could. We designed the house to meet our needs, and I believe it's still appropriately designed. Sustainability doesn't necessarily mean you have to live in a tiny home. At the same time, we're trying to do our best to design it in such a way that meets our needs, but meet those needs in the most sustainable way that we can.
All right, thank you. Coming back to this side of the board, any more discussion and or motions? Mr. Gavin.
I move to approve all variances as requested.
Is there a second? Ms. Robinson seconds. All right, Mr. Gavin.
I believe the petitioner outlined many of the practical difficulty factors in his letter and that he read to the board. To me, it is a lot, but in order to achieve this objective, which I think is a very laudable one and one that the city certainly has as an objective and is currently working on a more precise plan to implement, getting these numbers of panels that they need, it's a design factor that goes into this. And with the amount of roof space that they need in order to accommodate those panels, those the roofs, the stuff under it has to be used for something, is the way I view it. So when you look at it from that direction and the design needs in order to accommodate that, I think the rest just kind of flows from it. And that's the reason that I think there's practical difficulty here, which is the practical difficulty being the need of meeting that net zero objective and the limitations imposed by the engineering. So from that perspective and how things have flown from that, I think this meets our requirements. And on top of that, I'm quite pleased with the number of positive responses they got. If there were more people opposed to it, I would be a lot more hesitant, but there's nobody. I mean, and there's numerous letters of support from neighbors. So For that reason, I think this meets our requirements and should be approved.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson, do you have anything more to add?
Mr. Gavin has spoken quite eloquently on that. I do think that the net zero energy is really an exciting thing, and we're going in that direction. And I think we have to look at what do we need. There's other needs to doing that than how we heated and energized our house 100 years ago. I think this is going to be an exciting project. I think it's going to be good. The one thing about she did say something about the 3-car garage, the fact that his family, that really doesn't make a difference to us. But it does fit in the neighborhood. So I'm okay with that. And looking at the size of the lot and what they're doing to make this house net zero, and it's still going to look great in the neighborhood. I think that's all a plus. I think it's a good thing.
Any other comments? Mr. Klatt.
Commend you on striving towards energy efficiency. I commend you on reaching out to your neighbors. That was great support you received there. And I also commend you on staying below those percentages, 30% and 10%. To me, if you didn't, that'd be a different conversation. So I appreciate that. And for those reasons, I'll be in support as well.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, my only comments are this was an excellent presentation, excellent reach out to your neighbors, excellent education to the board members on the aspects of net zero and what's all involved with the solar panels as best as you can. And I think this project, if it passes, would be an excellent educational project. So I hope it does. If not, I hope you still do sustainable house in one manner or another. But I'm in favor of this for the practical difficulties in this unique circumstance to try and achieve a net zero home to show off in Royal Oak.
Cool.
And with that, we'll go to voting. Squares got all shaken up, so I'll start out with Ms. Robinson for first.
Yes.
Ms. Zukin?
No.
Ms. George?
Yes.
Mr. Reddy?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
Mr. Klatt?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So it passes 7-1. Congratulations, and I look forward to Royal Oak's first net zero home.
Thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
We appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Yep, you too. All right. Case number 21-10-44, 4410 Hillcrest Avenue. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Murphy.
All right. I let Jim in. Jim, are you associated with the next case, which is Hillcrest? Jim, are you there? James? James, are you able to hear us? James, we can see you. Can you hear us and see us?
I don't think he can hear us. Are you able to send him a chat, Mr. Murphy?
I do not have, I don't see that functionality. Let's try one more time. Jim, you were let into the meeting on your iPhone. Are you here for case 4410 Hillcrest? Well, let's see if there's anybody else in the waiting room that can assist him. Let me look through the list.
Jim might be this Jim Bishop from Father and Son.
Yes. One moment. Technical difficulties.
And to hold up, I can't hear you.
Maybe if you do a full screen of saying, Jim, are you part of it?
I am going to call him.
Okay, it's fair enough.
Let me put you on hold for a minute and see if I'm going to go blank. So just hang on for one moment.
Oh, he's connecting.
That might be Mr. Murphy calling him. Oh.
Jim, are you able to hear us now?
Oh, he's picking. I'm assuming since he went blank, he's talking to Joseph, I'm hoping. I wonder if they edit this part out in this live stream and the recorded stream.
It's quite an awkward silence.
Yeah, I almost want the Jeopardy theme song or something. I might be having difficulties. If they can't connect when Joseph comes back, we can always push him to the next one and
Jump to Cedar Hill.
yeah. But maybe Mr. Murphy will get him lined up. There's back and connecting. Nope, it's not showing any audio. It had an X when you went for audio there, James. And we can't hear you if you're speaking.
So I was able to speak with him on the phone. He's having technical difficulties.
Yep, I was going to say, Mr. Murphy, if we want to, we can.
He's trying to connect with audio. We'll give him one more chance,
Yeah.
and then we'll move on to the next one. Oh, I think he may be.
Unmute yourself. Unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. We
Yay!
can. All right.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Now,
You know,
I'm going to do the presentation, and then the board will have some questions for you. So we'll
Okay.
we'll jump into the presentation. Let me get back to the paperwork. Almost feel a sense of accomplishment right there. This site is located on Hillcrest. It's near the intersection of Crookston and 14
Mr. Murphy,
Mile.
are you sharing anything?
Yeah, let me do that. Sorry.
No problem.
And it's improved with a one-story single-family house. It has a detached garage, and as you can see from the image on the screen, it's got a 10-foot by 13-foot aluminum glass enclosed porch along the rear side of the dwelling. And all the structures on the site currently cover 31.1% of the lot. And the maximum allowable lot coverage, again, for any structure on the site, or I should say all the structures on the site, the maximum allowable coverage is 30%. So they're currently in excess of that at 31.1%. The petitioner wants to demolish the existing sunroom structure and construct a replacement, the exact same footprint. So by removing the existing structure, the site then becomes conforming in its total lot coverage. So the petitioner is seeking a variance in order to construct the exact same size footprint replacement for the current sunroom, with again the new sunroom, and in order to reestablish, we'll say reestablish a nonconformity, they do need a variance from the total lot coverage. And with that, since we have the petitioner, I will, the board can ask any questions they may have. I will note that we did not receive any public comment regarding this request.
Okay. Is there any questions for Mr. Murphy? All right. No questions for Mr. Murphy. Then the petitioner may. Uh-oh.
There he is.
There he is.
Yeah, I keep putting it to my ear because I can barely hear you guys.
Okay. Well, you may introduce yourself and give your address, and then go ahead, present away.
All right. My name is James Bishop. I work for Father and Son Construction. It is not my residence. I'm actually for the contractor looking to do the work.
Yes.
Okay. I can't figure out how to turn this up. So what was the question now?
You can go ahead and present your case right now.
Okay.
We'll have
What
questions
we're wanting
after.
to do is take the aluminum enclosure down and build a wood structure with a wood reverse gable going back onto the existing wood roof. So essentially all we're doing is taking it's a 3-season sunroom now. We're going to take that 3-season room down with the aluminum awning and build a wood structure with vinyl windows and an actual steel door. We're not going to make it any larger than what it already is.
Okay. Is there any questions for the petitioner? Mr. Klatt, and then Mr. Gavin.
I assume the existing non-conforming structure was built by maybe a previous homeowner, meaning it's not the sin of the current homeowner?
Yes, he said that was there when they bought the home.
Okay, and this is just an exact, you're matching the exact size and shape of the original structure, correct?
Yes, it has a shed aluminum awning now. We will be putting a gable. So the only difference between what's there and what we're building is the roof line will be slightly higher. Because if you notice on that picture there, the roof line goes off the existing frieze. The new roof will probably be about 4 feet higher and be a reverse gable going back onto the existing wood structure of the home. But the actual footprint will not be any larger than what it is.
Okay. Mr. Gavin?
I was just wondering if, the homeowner, or you talked to any of the neighbors that you're aware of, just to see if they had any objections or anything.
The homeowner told me that the neighbors on either side had no objections. As a matter of fact, unfortunately, I don't know what east and west is there, but if you're facing the house from the street, the homeowner on the right has a similar structure himself that we are going to, it's not going to match it exactly, but that's what we're looking to do. I don't know if you had a chance or any of you had a chance to go out and look at the site and noticed directly to the right of this home, there's one similar.
Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner? Ms. Robbins?
The foundation that was there, you're using the same foundation that's there currently, is that correct?
Yes, the foundation and the current slab. We did a test hole. We are going to have to underpin it. It is only at a 36-inch depth now, so we are going to dig along the side and underpin the existing footing to get to the 42-inch which required by the code.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, seeing none, we're absent one, well, I should say we're not absent. We're down one board member. So you can either decide to have us adjourn this to next month, or I should say table this to next month, or have us vote right now with just the 8 of us.
No, I wish to proceed. Go ahead and vote now, please.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring it to this side of the table and have discussion. All right, is there any discussion and or motions? Mr. Klatt, and then Ms. Zukin.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Zukin seconds. All right, go ahead, Mr. Klatt.
The existing non-conforming condition was not created by this homeowner, so they've enjoyed this patio size for years, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to enjoy the same size. No noticeable difference in the rear yard, no different, you won't be able to note, you won't notice this from the public street. So for those reasons, vote to approve.
Ms. Zukin, anything to add?
I'll just add that I think it will be an improvement for the neighbors on both sides who can see it. And if you can see it from the street, I wasn't able to drive by. I think it will improve the condition that it's in now. And it, as Mr. Klatt said, it's a pre-existing condition. So I have no problem.
All right. Any other comments? Anyone? No one? Well, I too will vote in favor of this. The practical difficulty is the fact, or practical hardship there is the fact that, as Mr. Klatt stated, hey, it's been here for years. They've used it for years. They're not changing the shape at all. They're just replacing it. So with that, I have no problem with it. And with that, we'll go to a vote. We'll start at the bottom this time. Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Yes.
Mr. Reddy.
Yes.
Ms. George.
Yes.
Klatt.
Yes.
Ms. Zukin.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
And I too vote yes. So it passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Next case, 21-10-45, 1904 Cedar Hill Drive. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Murphy.
I'm going to let the petitioners in.
Okay. So again.
So we're starting the hearing for the case associated with 1904 Cedar Hill. And this site is located on the north side of Cedar Hill, and I'm going to share my screen and demonstrate that it's improved with a one-story single-family home with an attached garage. This should look familiar, I think, to every board member. This site was in front of the board at its April meeting, and the board granted us 2 variances related to a particular design addition to the structure, and the petitioner is elected to modify their design. And so that those approved variances do not apply. This is an entirely different design that necessitates entirely different variances. Well, I will say the one design that is common is that the petitioner proposes a one-story covered, with an extended roof line from the house, a covered porch along the rear of the dwelling. That's the one design that's consistent. And the ordinance allows for terraces, patios, decks, similar structures that do not have a roof line or walls or support columns, that they are allowed to project into the required rear yard setback. But this design, and I'm going to refer to the elevation, this design, it doesn't meet that standard. As you can see, it's an extended roof line of the house, and it does project into the minimum required rear yard setback. And the petitioner's done an excellent job of highlighting that on their site plan. you'll see where they've noted the 35-foot setback and the dashed line, and the measurement to the nearest point of that covered unenclosed porch is less than 35 feet. So they're seeking a variance associated with that. The petitioner is also proposing to construct some additional living space to the ground floor area and to a second story. I'm going to refer to the elevation. I think the front elevation is helpful. The attached side entry, attached garage, and a full second story along the front side of the house. According to the petitioner's calculations, and we'll jump over to their floor plans. The ground floor has a living space. Again, it does not include the attached garage. It does not include the covered rear porch. They would have a resulting floor area of 2,600 square feet for the ground floor. And the second story, we'll look at the floor plan, is a partial second story floor area, so it does not extend across the entire portion or rear portion of the house. This front area, according to the petitioner's calculation, the front area additional living space is an additional 1,178 square feet. And that relates to 3 additional bedrooms, a bathroom, and a loft space. And you can see off the corridor, what they highlight as a future corridor adjacent to a bedroom is additional space above the attached garage. And that space meets the full height clearance in order to be considered living area. While the petitioner has noted a future corridor and a future intent to complete that as living space, staff, because it meets the height clearance requirement, staff did include that space, which is in its calculation, and that space in and of itself is an additional 682 square feet. So if we take the sum total of the ground floor, the second story living space for the bedrooms, the loft, and the bathroom, and the additional space above the garage, that equates to 4,460 square feet of floor area. The maximum allowable under the ordinance is 3,500 square feet. So the petitioner is seeking a variance of 960 square feet from that maximum allowable. We did not receive any public comments with regard to this request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Ms. Zukin.
Mr. Murphy, when they were here in April, am I correct that they were seeking a 10-foot setback? And this time, I mean, a waiver of 10 feet from the 35-foot setback, and now they're only seeking 6.5 feet? Or is it a whole different?
No, you're correct in that the variance request, the design element is the same. The placement on the property and which necessitates the variance request is different. So now it is a different variance request than previous.
Right. Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? Mr. Moore, and then Mr. Clip.
So if I'm looking at that correct, according to their drawings, the only access to that space above the garage right now would be like a hatch type of a thing in the garage ceiling, like a attic access, like maybe
Correct.
like a pull down ladder type of a thing.
Sure. Yes, it could very well be a pull down ladder. That's very common. But that area is confirming with the petitioner's designer is a full height clearance, and the fact that they've noted on there that it's a future corridor to access it, we did count it because it's capable of being used as living space, and if the intent is to do that in the future, The need now for the variance request in order to have assurance that it can be constructed in a manner to be, whether it's now or at some point in the near future, to use that as living space.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Klatt.
Comment was just a follow-up to Ms. Zukin's earlier comment. So they reduced the setback by 3.5 feet, but the overage now is quite a bit. It went from 44 to 960. So it's about a 914 square foot delta between the past submittal and this one.
The previous variance request related to the unenclosed covered rear porch, and it related to constructing additions to a larger than average attached garage. So this variance request B back in April was specific to going above and beyond the maximum allowable garage floor area, not living space for the house.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Gavin, was that your hand up to ask a question? Okay, my mistake. Any other question? Yes, Ms. Robinson.
Because they have this space over the garage and they're showing that they could put a hallway through there. If they didn't do that, I mean, I guess my question is, if they were going to finish that area off, would they have to come back and ask for a variance to build that? Or if we didn't pass that, or I guess I'm wondering why we're including that right now, since it's not going to be livable, or they're not using it as a livable space. Why are we including it now?
We included it because it meets the standard and it's shown on the floor plan as a future corridor to access it. So it's clearly their intent, no fault of their own. It's a very nice space to want to have. So why not give them the answer that they're seeking now? If that's an important element of the overall design of their house, it's critical that they know at this juncture.
Got it. Thank you.
Also, Mr. Murphy, it's also similar to ones I've seen in the past where you had to open to the great room below and there was enough ceiling space that one could fill in the room in there. And you guys had in the past counted that as potential, I remember.
Yes, not to confuse
right, not to confuse,
much, but yes, when we were creating that definition of usable floor area, the Planning Commission was very specific that they wanted to include open space below, so a great room area.
So future space, no matter what.
Yes, which is very difficult to explain to petitioners at times.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, seeing none, the petitioners may state who they are, their addresses, and go ahead with your case.
Good evening. Mike Gordon here, the architect for the project 4351 Delamere Court, Royal Oak, Michigan. I want to thank Mr. Murphy. He's done an excellent job of making this presentation so I can shorten some of my comments. As noted, we had been here previously in April to get a variance for the outdoor covered entertainment space. It's the same space, but because we added space upstairs, the addition to the back retracted somewhat, and it's pulled in from the house. Second, the needs of the owners have changed, and with a blended family and a new child, and after we did some studies with the builders and costs, and actually we solved the garage problem in the process, so the need for the larger garage changed as we morphed the design. This is actually a somewhat more cost-effective solution, even though it's bigger. A couple of things. This is what we know is the large lot area. Even with the additions that we're doing, we're only at 22% lot coverage total. So we're 8% over the lot. It's almost 4.1 acres of land. So it's a very large lot in the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, the house, it's one of the questions is always, do you enjoy the same rights as others? The house immediately to the right, if you're looking at the front, we also designed, and it's about 4,400 square feet or 4,200 square feet. So these large lots can support large homes that don't look overbuilt. One of the things we did, there's very large side yard setbacks. We respected those. So there's a lot of land on either side of the home. And we feel that we came in with just that as a usable attic space. And because of the height, we had no real intention of finishing it anywhere in the near future. But because of the rules, and they said, well, this is a walkable space, we never had the corridor before. We modified the drawings to show the potential corridor to get to it. The 360 square feet or so of the main house, so this extra 600 square feet, they're only really going to use the extra 300 or so above the 3,500. But it is also nice that down the road, if circumstance change, as we see with all these blended families, and we see with intergenerational families, I'm doing a lot of homes where there's dueling primary suites, where the in-laws or the parents come and stay for extended periods to be with the grandkids. And then, as we also know, working from home has become the new standard, and also the fact that children tend to stick around a lot longer than they used to. So I think for all these reasons, they wanted to expand in this way so that down the road, if circumstances change, it gives them the option. We feel that the middle of the back, the home placement of the screened in, or not the screened porch, I mean the covered outside entertainment space, the privacy fence, the landscaping, for all the same reasons we presented the last one, that it has no impact or very little impact on any of the adjoining neighbors. Again, I just want to reiterate, this is a very large lot. And in fact, if it wasn't for the 3,500 square foot limit that is imposed, that if we followed all the other ordinances for lot coverage and for height restrictions and setbacks, we actually have a 5,000 square foot buildable footprint that would still maintain the 30% lot coverage. So we don't think this is excessive for the neighborhood or excessive for the site. And we hope you look favorably upon this. And like I said, we really, I think we're sensitive to keeping as much green space around the home as was originally there. We'll be happy to answer any questions. And the homeowner is with us, Brian, Caitlin, and if they need to address any issues that are concerns, I'm sure they'd be happy to pipe up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do the homeowners have anything else to add to this? No? Okay. I can't hear you anyway. So
Can't hear you.
that's okay, but we got nothing. All right, is there any questions for the petitioner? Anyone? Okay, seeing none, before we bring it back to this side of the table, as you note, we are at a short one of a full board. We can either proceed and vote, or we can table this till next month, your choice.
The homeowner has indicated with the text message they would like to proceed.
Okay, we'll bring back to the side for discussion and or motions. Anyone? Don't all jump at once, I guess. Anyone want to kick off discussion or motion? Mr. Cladd.
For the sake of discussion, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second? Ms. Robinson seconds. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Cladd.
I agree with the applicant or the petitioner's comments, and very similar to the first case we heard this evening. It's a large lot, and these larger lots can support homes of larger size. And I agree with the numbers they described. It could support a much larger home up to that 30% maximum. So it seems like they built it within reason. None of the room sizes seem excessive. They actually reduced the rear yard setback, which Ms. Zukin pointed out earlier. So for those reasons, I will support.
All right, Ms. Robinson. You're muted.
I'll support it myself. I think it's going to fit in with the neighborhood. I mean, it's going to really improve the neighborhood too. It's not only going to help them, but help the neighborhood. It looks like it's going to fit in.
All right. Any other discussion? Mr. Wynn?
You know, for me, it kind of gave me pause. Like the reduction, and I do appreciate the reduction in the setbacks over last time. Not that it was a huge issue before, but it kind of gave me pause in terms of the overall livable square footage. But when you actually look at it, if you were to take away the, the extra full height space over the garage, it would not look symmetrical anymore. And I think it would look, and I know we're not, supposed to be evaluating these on design criteria, but I still think it looks better the way it is. And for that reason, I think, given the large lot condition and all that, I agree. I'm coming down in favor of this.
Anyone else? Ms. Sukin? You're muted.
Okay, sorry. To clear up any inconsistencies in advance, there's not, the reason why I support this one and I didn't support the first one had more to do with the garage and driveway issue. And I don't have that in this case, and I think the house does fit in well with the neighborhood. And that's why I'm going to be supporting this one.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. Start at the top this time. Ms. Robinson? You're muted.
Yes.
Ms. Sukin?
Yes.
Mr. Klatt?
Yes.
Ms. George?
Yes.
Mr. Reddy?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
And I too will vote yes. So it's passed 8-0, unanimous. Congratulations. We will, let's see, move on to the next one then. Case number 21-10-46, 2503 North Connecticut Avenue. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Murphy.
Okay, and let me make sure I get all the invitees correctly.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, so I think we have all of those that are waiting for the case on Connecticut. So I will share my screen and we can move forward with the request. This site's located on the west side of North Connecticut, and it's improved with a 1.5-story home that has a 460 square foot detached garage. The petitioner is proposing to demolish the existing garage and to construct a new garage that has a total of 817 square feet in area. And the two distinct portions, as you can see in the design, are the traditional garage element, the enclosed area, which is 550 square feet. And there is an extended roof line that creates an open covered outdoor entertainment area. And that portion of the structure is 267 square feet. The lot, based on the lot size, the petitioner is allowed a maximum garage size of less than 800 square feet, and the resulting lot coverage can be no more than 10%. In this proposal that results in a total accessory floor area of 11.7%. So the petitioner is seeking a variance of 1.7%, which is about 119.5 square feet from the maximum allowable 10% coverage for accessory structures. And we did not receive any public comment with regard to this particular request. I can answer any questions that the board may have.
All right, Mr. Klatt, go ahead.
So Mr. Murphy, if the applicant built or petitioner built the same exact structure but attached it to the house, let's say the back side of the house, would we have any issues? Doesn't sound like it.
And I'm assuming
same footprint, same structure, just attached to the house.
And I'm gonna bring up on the screen. I'm assuming you're referring to the covered patio.
Right, yes, correct. Sorry, I should have clarified. The new covered patio.
Yeah. Yes, and that's similar to what you saw in the last request. And that is something that we did consider and we have considered in the past, and because it's associated with a separate, entirely separate structure, we consider it an integral part, and it's an integral, their shared roof line. We consider it an integral part of the overall structure. It's an accessory structure, and we count it towards the accessory lot coverage. If it's a covered porch, like the one you previously just saw off the backside of the dwelling, no relation to a separate accessory structure like a detached garage, and we do not count it. Yes, that is a good point of clarification. And oftentimes these are challenges for staff to make those determinations, but that's the way we've been applying it consistently for many, many years.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, seeing none, the petitioner may introduce themselves with their names and address, and then go ahead and present.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Paul Rigoni and Denise Rigoni. We've been homeowners here in Royal Oak for a little over 25 years. We've continued to improve and update the home that we live in here. We have a great community, great neighbors. We enjoy the space very much. Really, with the design of the garage and that outdoor space really came about prior to the pandemic, but during the pandemic, it made more sense over the past 19 months. Denise and I now work remote from home and for the foreseeable future. And the covered patio space, which is an existing patio, the brick pavers exist today. So that's all we're really covering is an existing space that we utilize just from, an escape from the house to unwind, kind of get ourselves back, mentally recharged from our day from actually being in the house all day long. In addition to that, the space will provide, entertainment space for family and friends. I have a 87-year-old father that we're a primary caregiver for, and it gives us the outdoor space to social distance, as well as we have a couple siblings that have some immune compromised situations that, so we can kind of still visit and have people over with maintaining social distance and keeping a healthy environment.
Thank you. Steve, I don't know your last name.
Hi, Steve Bramakers, Main Street Design Build 555 South Old Woodward, Birmingham.
Okay,
so only thing I'll add to this is a project that we are seeing quite often right now. This is the third such project that we have underway this year for the same very reasons. People are looking to be outside, entertain outdoors, to safely social distance. And so, yes, what we designed in was a room attached to the garage. And I think you can all see that if we were to just build the garage alone, it would meet all the setback requirements and the lot coverage. But by adding this covered roof structure over the existing patio, this is what is setting us over the lot coverage issue. And with this, we're able to heat the space for them so they can enjoy it a little bit longer into the year out there. So maybe they can get 3 seasons out there for it. And I guess the thing to note is with the patio that they have out there already, we're not increasing any of the impervious surfaces on the property. I think with the roof structure, we're able to actually control the water a little bit better through guttering and diverting the water a little bit more where we want it right now. So I guess that's all I have to add to that.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the petitioner? Mr. Klatt.
2 quick questions. Number 1, did you reach out to your neighbor to the right to get their opinion on the structure?
We sure did. We on both sides of us, and both of them were very approval and positive feedback. The structure to our north of us, their comment was they were just a little jealous. So.
And I guess second question kind of leads to the question I asked Mr. Murphy earlier. Did you consider attaching it to the home to avoid this the variance request? And again, I have no idea of your interior layout, how it would connect to the house, if there's doors leading out through it, but did you consider that, or are there issues that prevent you from doing that?
Not really. But if to structure it from the house and the way the back of the house is shaped, I think it would give it a larger peak, where the shed roof kind of more streamlines, and you really wouldn't see it from behind the house or from the street level. So I think it's more blends in more than from the back of the house. Also from the back of the house would probably cut off, vantage points from, viewing the outside area, just because of, the way the windows are and that kind of stuff. But, this project came after after some additional projects that we did to the house.
And I can add to that. Yeah, I think I can add to that too, that, you would really kill a lot of the natural lighting that enters into the house right now by putting the roof structure off of the back of the home too. Where previous projects that Paul was just speaking of, we increased the natural lighting and viewing of that. I think there's only one place that it could go, and that would take that natural lighting away.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the petitioner? Sure.
I saw on the plan that I think the proposed with the proposed structure, the total lot coverage is 28.67%. Is that correct? I just wanted to make sure I was reading that correctly.
I can look and double check that. Yes, I had come up with 28%.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, seeing that, before we bring it back to this side, as you know, we are down one member. We may have a full board next month, we may not. Would you like us to proceed, or would you like us to table to next month?
Proceed.
Okay, we'll bring it to this side of the table for discussion and or motions. Anyone like to take the first shot? Mr. Moore.
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? I saw Mr. Klatt raise his hand first. Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
I think this is, very similar to the one we saw earlier, just the fact that it's attached to the garage. They already have their brick paver patio there, so the placement of it makes sense for them. And, everybody's trying to look for ways to spend more time outside. So I think this is a good suggestion.
Mr. Klatt.
Mr. Moore summed it up well. And the fact is they could build a structure like this somewhere on the lot, either against the house. So where it goes, I guess it really doesn't matter. This seems to be the most logical place for it, in a place that works well for their needs. So that's why I'll support it.
Any other discussion? Anyone? Anyone? All right, I too will support first what's been stated so far, because the practical difficulty is, as they brought up, if they were to place this against the house, you'd be stopping the natural light that could be coming into the house. And as many of us all know, we all love natural light coming into the house. So even though you might get an outdoor space, you prevent any of that nice light getting into the house. So because of that, I think the difficulty is they're getting penalized for having it against the garage. So I have no problem being in favor. And with that, we'll go to the votes. We'll start at the bottom. Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Yes.
Mr. Reddy.
Yes.
Ms. George.
Yes.
Mr. Klatt. Yes. Ms. Zukin.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
And I also vote yes, so that's a unanimous 8-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome. Have a good evening. We will go on to case number 21-10-47, 735 South Main Street. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Murphy.
I'm going to ask Mr. Abdenauer, do you have another Do you have two other members by the name of Kenneth or Sam associated with your case that I should let in? I see them in a waiting room, but I don't have their contact information. Perhaps Mr. Jesse Parkinson can answer that question. Jesse, can you hear me? Mr. Abdenauer, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Do you have two other individuals that you've invited by the name of Sam and Kenneth?
Oh, well, I don't know the owner's name. I'm here with Gassan. And if he's not here, I can text him. He should be in the waiting room. Okay.
Mr. Abdenauer, do you know those individuals?
Gassan can answer that question.
Can I see the question here with the question before?
Yes, I have two individuals in the waiting room that I'm unfamiliar with. I'm wondering if they may be associated with your case. One by the name of Sam, the other by the name of Kenneth.
Sam is the owner, yes.
Okay, I shall let Sam in.
Yes.
Does anyone know Kenneth? Do you have two other individuals that you've invited by the name of Sam and Kenneth?
Oh, well, I don't know the owner's name. I'm here with Gassan. And if he's not here,
Hi, board members. Yes, that's us right here. Sam Badian.
Okay, I'm going to put you guys on mute because we're getting a lot of playback. When we are done with the presentation, we'll unmute you and
see that question?
Okay, so we're going to proceed forward. This site is located on Main Street at the corner of Lincoln. It's in the city's central business zoning district. It's currently improved with an automobile filling station. And automobile filling stations are neither a permitted nor a special land use in the central business zoning district. The petitioner is proposing to demolish and remove the existing filling station and construct a new, invest in a new automobile filling station, which includes all new underground fuel tanks, overhead canopy, 3 pump islands, which would serve 6 vehicles, fuel 6 vehicles at once, and a 5,200 square foot convenience store. In this investment, it extends the longevity of the non-conforming use. So the conforming use can't be altered to occupy a greater area of the site, and this investment would expand the functionality and extend the longevity. That can't be expanded without the zoning board's approval. The petitioner is seeking a variance in order to alter, enlarge the non-conforming use. Should the board grant the variance, the petitioner does need to then proceed forward to the Planning Commission for site plan approval. And all the standards that would normally apply if this site were in the appropriate zoning district, all of those standards would apply. And the Planning Commission has discretion over a variety of those standards. One of those standards that they do not have discretion over is the minimum required parking. And for a convenience store of this size, it would be required to have no less than 24 off-street parking spaces. And as you can see from the design on the screen, the petitioner has provided a design that accommodates 11 off-street parking spaces. So they are, if the board first grants the expansion of the non-conforming use, the board would then need to vote on the variance request associated with waiving the minimum required number of parking spaces. And again, that's because we would apply, if this were in an appropriately zoned site, we would apply all the provisions for a filling station, which include providing required on-site parking. Now, obviously, that's not associated with many uses in the downtown, and a filling station is not one of the uses that's allowed or special land use in the downtown. The petitioners provided floor plans of the proposed convenience store, and they've also provided a rendering for you to consider as well. We did not receive any public comment with regard to this variance request. I can answer any questions that the board might have before we have questions for the petitioner.
Okay, so Ms. Zukin, then Mr. Klett, then Mr. Moore. So Ms. Zukin.
Mr. Murphy, you used a term that I haven't heard before, extended longevity. What are you referring to when you say that?
Yes, it's currently a non-conforming use, and this would be an investment that would I'll obviously, as you I'll bring up the photographs if board members are not familiar with the site. This is a filling station that is arguably built many decades ago and has, I'm going to share my screen, has not seen significant amount of investment. I'm certain for a wide variety of reasons, but it has not seen a significant amount of investment. It doesn't meet the standards of today's fueling stations. And so to take this non-conforming use and to modify the site with that amount of investment is extending a non-conformity at the site. So this is a non-conforming circumstance that's lingering, and one might argue that it's coming to the end of its useful or functional life. That influx of investment to create a much larger convenience store, new pump islands, it's a significant investment in the property that would simply extend the longevity, the life of the nonconformity, and keep it at this location for many years to come.
Thank you.
Mr. Klett.
Mr. Murphy, is there a reason why the city doesn't recognize the parking spaces or the spaces at the pump? So it looks like there's 6 spots or 6 pump spaces. Why can't we count those as 6 parking spaces? It's common that you would fill up your car, then you run inside and you leave your car at the pump. It happens all the time. I do it. Probably shouldn't do it, but I do it. But why aren't those counted?
They are separate because someone can come to the site specifically for the convenience store element. As you well know, modern filling stations always have a much larger convenience store than the traditional setting, which had maybe an area behind the counter. Individuals at a size of 5,200 square feet, that's a fairly large convenience store that arguably has an excellent selection of goods to choose from, including alcohol. People could be coming specifically to the site just to go to the convenience store. So while an individual certainly has the opportunity to run in while they're fueling up or after they fuel up, there's a dedicated customer base that comes there for not just for fuel purposes.
Makes sense. And I know it's not a.
Oh, sorry.
Safe, I was going to say it's not a safe comparison because the old building had a service station component, but I can't really see the striping. Do you know how many spaces are there right now that supports this? I mean, it's an odd shaped lot. It's irregular. But is there any idea of how many spaces they currently have?
We can look at the survey.
And
as you noted, all of those have kind of worn out over time.
Yeah, I couldn't.
The delineation of spaces aren't shown on the survey, but I think that the petitioner could give you an understanding of what percentage of their customer base is coming for what particular reason.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore.
Yeah, let me think of how I want to phrase the question rattling around in my mind here. So this structure and this use obviously predated the particular zoning area that it's now included in, correct?
Yes, arguably. And then before many moons ago, it was an outdoor storage yard for businesses associated with the railroad. It was actually a coal storage. There was large coal storage bins on the site prior to being a filling station.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Eddy.
I have a couple questions, one specific and one kind of general. So the specific one is, I know you mentioned in previous cases there's like a formula, and I think this one is based on, it said convenience / grocery. Like, is there a specific one for filling stations that has a formula for how many parking spaces are required? And two, does it vary when you're in the CBD versus outside of the CBD?
There is a specific parking calculation to convenience, grocery, liquor stores. It is one parking space for 200 square feet of usable floor area, and it only applies if the development is in a zoning district where the development is an allowed use. So in this particular case, the central business district, it's not, which necessitates the first variance request. And then if the board does grant the appeal to expand or enlarge the nonconformity, extend the nonconformity, then we do apply all the traditional standards for a filling station with a convenience store, as if the site was in an appropriate zoning district.
Okay.
So it's confusing in the fact that, yes, that the zoning ordinance doesn't allow this use at all. But if you give them the variance request, they need to provide a ton of parking in the downtown.
And then I had a second question, kind of more generally. Sometimes the planning commission approves a site plan, and then we are asked to approve parking. In this case, we're being asked to approve parking before the site plan. I was just wondering, is it just by happenstance which one comes first, or?
In this particular instance, it's because it's a non-conforming use. So it's critical to know whether the board will grant that variance request, because the design is irrelevant if the board doesn't grant the variance request just to even have the continuation of the use with this significant investment. So it's really critical to know. We thought that was the first step, is to have the board either grant or deny the variance request, and then full well knowing that if the board did grant the variance request, that a parking variance request is also necessary.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? All right. Seeing none, the petitioner may introduce themselves and give the addresses of where they are from and present their case.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Ghassan Abdinu from JV Associates Architect. I'm representing the owner here tonight, and with me is Jesse Parkinson, from Green Tech, is civil engineer. First, thank you for having us with you here tonight. And I just want to go through the process a little bit. The owner that I'm representing here, he owned that gas station for 18 years. And I think he did, maybe so many years ago, he did go in front of the board and was denied to fix the building or to put any new addition for that project. So after all these years, after 18 years, we're trying to kind of do a project that actually works good with downtown Royal Oak. We did a lot of projects in downtown. We love downtown Royal Oak, and we love the city. And we want to do something that works with downtown. This gas station has been there for maybe 50 years. And because of the location, it's going to be another 50 years. So we wanted to do something that works for the city. First, we're trying to work with the design. Let's start. We are canceling, let's talk about the circulation on this project. There's two entrances for the project from Lincoln and from Main Street at the corner. We're canceling these two entrances. We're trying to make the site a little bit more, less dangerous for circulation, trying to make the entrances a little bit away from the intersection. And this existing site has like 2 canopies. If you go to the existing site, Mr. Murphy, uh, there's 2 canopies, and these 2 canopies in real life is really kind of, they don't meet setback requirement. And if you have one car on the side of the pump, there is no other car can pass by it. So in a general term, the circulation in this gas station is kind of, I mean, it doesn't meet kind of the new standards of circulation for our shopping center, for our gas station, for our retail. So the owner, what we're trying to do, instead of just put new brick and put new glass on the existing building and make it a little pretty, we wanted trying to do something that it's more conforming to the future. Mr. Murphy is right. We're gonna fix that because it's always gonna be a gas station. We're trying to fix it to make it look good for our downtown. So we looked at it. We're trying to do first better circulation on the site. And the owner told me that it's very important for us to come up with a design for the building. If you go to the rendering, Mr. Murphy, for the rendering, to kind of make it look a little bit more like a retail instead of a gas station. So we used every element possible to make it more like a shopping center, like a store, like a retail, trying to make it like a more downtown. So we used the brick, we used the limestone, we used the metal, we used the nice wood ceiling on the ceiling under the canopies. We created little cut. We have the metal siding on the top that it's actually kind of matching a little bit and make it a little bit more lengthways to create a little bit more retail look. At the same time, we didn't make it just like a box. We went into some areas in the gas station and we created intersection. We created the roof to go over the dumpster. On the other side, we created a area that if people stand, just don't make it like a flat building. We want it to look like a little more like a downtown store. You do have the canopy in front of it. We did work on the canopy. We added the brick, the limestone. We're planning to make the canopy kind of match the same metal like we do for the building itself. We're trying to add these lightings on the building that it's actually give it some character. The light only goes up and down just to give it a nice look at night, because this gas station might be 24 hours. We want to create safety for the people. At the same time, the building, the way it's designed, we went through the whole front. We only played with the back. We followed the shape of the lot. And we covered, for example, the railroad track. So we wanted to kind of, the building to kind of look a little bit more facing as a retail, but at the same time, hold this, all the stuff that it's in the back. We're planning to work with you for landscaping. We're planning to get your advice. I mean, we're here really not only to get variance, we get your input. If your input that we need to do something good, we would love to work on it. The other issue too, we are creating a store that it's good actually for the neighborhood. We're creating better service inside, maybe milk, maybe whatever. I mean, gas station will provide. We have a lot of doors. We're trying to make it that kind of attractive, have your coffee. And the main thing in Royal Oak, this is not like any other gas station. This is a walkable street. People walk on the street. People, when they walk, there's a lot of condos, there's a lot of houses behind it. There's a lot of retail that they might like to walk to that. The parking lot is important, but in this case, in the same location of this building, it's not that important. People walk to this building. People, we're part of downtown. I mean, I know Mr. Murphy said because this is non-conforming, so it doesn't meet the CB, the downtown parking. We do have a lot of parking on the street. People park on the street. We're allowed to do that. But at the same time, we're trying to provide 11 parking, and we're trying to like Mr. Klatt said, I understand exactly. A lot of cities we design gas station in them, they do add the parking for the pumps. We do have 6 pumps in that situation. We have 6 cars, and we have 11 parking. So really that's a big number. So any gas station, I don't think if you ever see more than 17 cars in a parking lot. Also, I need to talk now about the interior of the building. The building is around 5,200 square feet. This building, the way we designed it from inside, the usable area, I'm talking usable where the people will be in that gas station. Only take out the coolers, take out the behind the counter, it's equal to 2,800 square feet. 2,800 square feet divided by 200, it's equal 14 parking. So really, if we're gonna use the usable space, we're talking about 14 cars. And if we wanna go by code, the word said usable, because most of these coolers really, we can't really use them. No people go into these coolers, so they're non-usable for public. The only public, if he has to come to this building, he has only 2,880 square feet. And with the numbers, it's 14 cars. So we do have 11, and Mr. Klatt made sense. I'm saying that the 6 cars, because I do the same thing. We have 6 cars on the pumps, and we go into the building. But please, this is a downtown. This is a walkable area. This is people, we have parking on the street. We're trying to create a building that the city of Royal Oak be proud of. I know it's not conforming, but this building's been there for a long time. If we don't fix it, if we don't make it look good, it's gonna be tough for everybody. It's gonna be tough for the owner, but he's not gonna get rid of it. And it's gonna be tough for the city because we have a very deteriorated building that it needs a lot of fixing. Just adding brick and the paint and stuff like this, it's not gonna make it look better. And the circulation outside, the existing one is pretty bad shape. And by taking these 2 entrances from Lincoln and Main Street, it's a big deal actually. Most of the new gas station we're fixing, most of these entrances, we're taking them out because they're creating somehow some accident. So we're going to safety. The safety with the light, the safety with the new canopies that meet the new requirement, and the safety for the new landscaping and to create a better building for City of Royal Oak. The only thing here we're begging you, and we want any suggestion from you to help us to see if something we need to fix, something we need to do, we're willing to work with you. The owner, he owns a lot of gas stations, but this location it's very important for him. Let's put it in this way. So he told me that we want to make it look good. This is whatever it takes. I want the city to be happy. So that's why we're here in front of you. And I don't know if Jesse has something to add to the situation, but also we're taking all the tanks out. We're fixing any issues. Usually this lot has phase 1 and phase 2 done. So no environmental issues been in it. So we are taking the tanks out, we're cleaning all the site, and we're rebuilding everything from scratch. So actually, environmentally, it's better for the neighborhood, it's better for the city, and just, we want your help. We're here in front of you. If you feel that you need to give us advice, we're willing to retable it and go do that advice that you ask us for and come back in front of you. But please work with us. It's a great location in downtown. Main Street need better gas station, and I'll take any questions you have.
All right. Is there any questions for the petitioner? Anyone? No one? All right. Ms. Zukin and Mr. Reddy. You're muted.
This is actually more for Mr. Murphy. If there were no gas tanks there and they were just putting in the convenience store, would it require a use variance?
If I understand your question correctly, if they were expanding the convenience store only, that was the only investment that they were looking to do?
Correct.
I don't know if that's the instance that occurred in the past. I can look and see in how we treated it then. Maybe we could go on to a different question while I look for that. But I think that may have been the instance that what happened in the past.
Well, guess what I mean is if it wasn't a gas station anymore and it was just when they take the pumps out, if they kept them out and just improved the convenience.
Different circumstance. If they remove the underground tanks, they remove the fuel pumps, the fuel canopies, and it was just a convenience store, then it would be a permitted use in the downtown. It would be traditional retail sales, convenience items, and it would be something that would be permissible.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Reddy.
Oh, yeah. So my question was for the petitioner. One of the things we have to consider is if there's a hardship for using it for a permitted purpose. And along those lines, I thought it might be difficult to take something that is a gas station and turn it. I think there are some environmental approvals for changing a site that was once a gas station into something else. Is that correct?
No, actually, the building is environmentally safe. So we did phase 1, we did phase 2. The hardship, it's kind of a hardship. The circulation on the site, the entrance from the Lincoln and from Main Street on the corners, we're trying to create a better, safe environment for the people coming to the gas station. And now we're calling it some nice retail. We're trying to create a nice design. So the hardship is how to access the building and how to make it safer inside. And also the circulation inside the site. The site, we do have 2 canopies. The canopies, one of them, the pump is very close to the side. So when the guy is pumping, he's going very close to the edge. So really there's no two-way street over there. So that would create some issues and hardship too. And at the same time, we thought part of the building, just to safety from the back, we try to enclose all the back area and also create better safe situation with the railroad station and creating more landscaping area to try to keep it safe for the people walking on the street. And in general, the safety itself of the building is deteriorating. We want to try to make sure, like I said, we can change the glass, we can put paint, but we're trying to do something better for Royal Oak and for the people living in Royal Oak.
Any other, Mr. Gavin?
Really just a quick comment. I've heard the word hardship a lot tonight, and I think everybody needs to remember we're looking for practical difficulty because those are actually different standards legally. So just.
Mr. Reddy.
But isn't one of them a use variance? Isn't hardship for use?
Oh, yes, you're right. Thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, seeing that, before we bring it to the side, Mr. Murphy, since this is regarding use variance, am I correct in assuming we would need 6 affirmative votes for the expand, alter, non-conforming use, or am I incorrect on that one?
It's not. They're not seeking a use variance since the use is already there, and it would be its continuation of its what we refer to as an alteration, expansion, or an enlargement of an existing non-conforming use. So that's it's different than a use variance. A use variance does require 6 affirmative votes. This particular expansion of the non-conforming use requires 5 affirmative votes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so then you need 5. There's only 8 of us. So we're short 1 member. That's not a guarantee we'll have full board next month or the month after that. So you have the
choice. But the only thing I was saying during my presentation that we like your advice. I mean, if you think you see projects every day. If it's retabled and you give us advice, we can come back and maybe fix these. I mean, listen to you and work on it. I know we're gonna have to take a chance. I agree. I'm planning commissioner myself, and I'm a ZBA in West Bloomfield. I go through the same process every day. People, but we like to get your advice. We're here, we like to be more partners with you than just doing the project just to do it. The owner is willing to work with you guys. We have this building, it's around 5,100 something. And like we did say, I want you to understand that like the coolers and the counter that nobody goes to it, it's more than 2,000 square feet. So we do have like 2,800 square feet left for people. So for the variance for the parking, and it's a downtown, and we do have parking on the street. But this is not the issue tonight. The issue is mainly that non-conforming, and we like to kind of fix that building and try to do something better for the downtown. If you think there's advice, we'll take it. The owner is here with us. Sam, do you want to wait for 9, or what do you think? What's your heart tells you? Because I know you. This is very unmute yourself. So it's very important.
Can I speak to? I'm just curious. So is the idea here to vote on the use, and then if the use gets approved, then we go on to vote on the parking?
Correct.
Okay.
One could propose for both at the same time, but yes, there's the possibility of being split also.
Okay. So I guess I'd just like to reiterate the use part of this discussion. The use is actually getting improved, in my opinion, because we are no longer having a service station on the site. So the reduction it's more of a convenience store, which is an allowed use, and less of a service station, which is what it was existing. And then secondly, the number of pumps was 3, and now it's still 3. So there's really no increase in pumps. It's the same there. Just wanted everybody to be clear on that.
All right, Mr. Murphy I don't know if he heard about the use thing. I don't know if you want to explain why the service is, even though it's a convenience and they're getting rid of the service, why it's still considered service. And then we got Mr. Gavin, Mr. Klatt had questions.
I'll let the other board members ask their questions. I think that
Okay.
I presented.
No problem. I just didn't know if you wanted to on that. Okay, Mr. Gavin.
I just thought it might help to clarify that, generally on this board at this phase, we're just asking the petitioners if they have any questions. It's fairly routine for us in our discussion. If it seems like tabling it would help, that we would do that. So I don't. That's not like off the table if we move into the discussion phase of things on this side. And I have some comments I want to say. I just didn't feel like it was appropriate at this time for me to say them, because this is more about questions of you guys. And I think your presentation handled all of my questions, so I don't really have anything.
All right, thank you, Mr. Klatt. Any other questions?
Just one quick question. I think Mr. Abdenauer pointed this out, that the owner, if this is denied, the owner intends to maintain this as a gas station. There's no intent to sell. It'll operate into the future as is this current gas station, correct? Is that what I thought I heard?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore?
Yeah, so the service bays, are those currently in use, or is that just vacant?
Yeah, they're in use. We're gonna take them out.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. So just to make sure, you want us to vote on this tonight, or would you like us to table it for another month?
Unmute yourself, Sam. Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, Sam Baidoun, 39827 Gulfview Drive, Northville, Michigan. I just want to answer the question now, and I can come back and add to what Abdennour present. But I believe he did a very nice presentation. But yes, I'd like to proceed.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring it back to the side of the board for comment and or motions.
Anthony, I just want to ask Joseph, just to clarify, to make sure the board is understanding it. So the standard then for this matter would be for practical difficulties. Is that correct?
Yes, since it's a non-use variance.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because it seemed like it wasn't totally clear. Thank you, Joseph.
Mr. Moore.
We can come back to me in just a moment.
Okay. Mr. Gavin.
I move to approve the variances as requested.
Is there a second? Mr. Moore seconds. All right, go ahead, Mr. Gavin.
I have a lot of thoughts on this one. Some of them are personal because I walk past that gas station all the time. From a practical difficulty standpoint, it's an odd shape. It is an odd shaped lot. I know that we don't have any setback requirements here, but the redesign, it's so they're going towards improving the safety, and I think that is a huge factor for me here because I always feel unsafe walking past the thing with the number of cars, the directions they could go, the number of entrances, and I'm usually walking past it with my kids, to go to a restaurant or to go to church, what have you. So that's a weighs huge in my mind, and I really appreciate that your design factors that in. Beyond that, it's a very old site. It definitely needs an update, and I in instances where the alternatives are repair it or replace it and with something that continues the non-conforming use or just continue with it as is. I would much rather work with the petitioner and see the site improved. And I think this is a vast improvement that is much needed and will greatly improve our downtown. And beyond that, I know that it's not a permitted use, but there's really, it's that gas station and then the one that's off of 11 Mile. There's just not a lot of gas stations right in that area. I think it's a great spot for one, given the proximity to the railroad tracks. It's a good use for that site. And I appreciate the design and how it utilizes the site in a much better way, because there's just a lot of open, unused space there right now. And I think this makes a much more efficient use of that site. So for that, all those reasons above, I think the practical difficulty standards here have been met. I think it will do great service to our downtown, and I'm in favor.
Right, Mr. Moore, anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just add from the practical difficulty standpoint, I don't believe that purchasing this station that he had the idea that he would only be able to have it for 18 years. And so I feel from a practical difficulty standpoint, I believe that meets it. And I will say I live in the area, and this is a very dated looking site coming into our downtown area. And I think this will be a huge improvement, also offering retail as opposed to maybe a more outdated auto servicing would be good. And then as far as the parking requirements, I feel like that would be an adequate number of parking spaces because this is a very walkable area. And I feel like probably more of the customer traffic, if you would be in on foot or bike. I mean, there are numerous different multifamily properties going up all around this area, single family neighborhoods. And I think that the customers probably driving there are going to be less than those coming by other means.
All right, anyone else like to add? Ms. George.
one thing I think about doing this project and keeping the gas station where it is, but improving it, is that off of 696, there are not a lot of gas station options in that corridor. You have the one in Huntington Woods off Woodward and Lincoln, but it's a boulevard, so you can only be going one way to hit it, or you have to make a turnaround. And I think this is, I think having a gas station there like we do now is great, but it's not in the best condition. And sometimes I don't want to go to that one because I'm not sure about the safety of it or the upkeep. So I think having a gas station that's still a relatively short proximity to 696, where both directions of traffic can go to, is a great thing, and I support it.
All right. Anyone else? Mr. Reddy.
I just want to follow up with what Mr. Moore was saying regarding the parking spaces. I think this will be enough spaces, and that having the same standard for a grocery store and a gas station, I think, is inflating the number that's required, because you're not going to spend as much time running into the gas station as you would at a grocery store. So I'll be voting in favor.
Anyone else? But before we vote, I'll just say my piece. I think the presentation was great. I think the idea of what they want to renovate makes the site a lot safer, makes it look a lot cleaner. My only hesitation is it being against what is in the master plan for the downtown business area, and them not wanting to have gas stations down there, as well as the fact that probably within the next 10 to 20 years, most of the vehicles will be all electric. So who knows how many people will be going to that. That being said, if this wasn't there, what could go there? It probably would, it's too small for probably a multi-family use or mixed use. Probably would be something fast food. And you'd still have about the same type of layout, and maybe even more dangerous than a gas station with fast food. Maybe not. I don't know. Without a new master plan of what's intended, it's hard to guess. And knowing that this would last at least another 10, 20 years, a new object would be better than leaving it in the condition it is now and just putting paint on a pig, the old expression. So with that, I'll heartily vote in favor, but I do have concerns about the future and what was intended by the master plan for this area. And with that, we'll go to the vote. We'll start off with Ms. Robinson.
I vote yes.
Ms. Zukin.
Yes.
Mr. Klatt.
Yes.
Ms. George.
Yes.
Mr. Reddy.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
And myself, I will vote yes. Let's see, so the motion passes unanimously. All right. So.
Thank you very much, guys. We appreciate it. We're here to do something good project for the city of Royal Oak. We spend a lot of time at the city of Royal Oak and walkable areas. And we thanks also Mr. Murphy with his helps with the process. And hopefully we're gonna go into the site plan approval and try to meet most of the city requirements, and we make everybody happy. So thank you.
Welcome. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Let's see, and then we're to the last one of the night. Case number 21-10-48, 1002 South Lafayette. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Murphy.
All right. I'm going to share my screen. This site is located at the intersection of Lafayette and Hudson. And as you can tell from the aerial photograph on the screen in front of you, the site has a front yard setback along Lafayette, and the adjacent property to the west along Hudson has a front yard setback along Hudson. So the existing house is located within that front yard setback of the house at 415, the structure at 415 West Hudson. The petitioner proposes to utilize the existing, there's an attached garage, which you can see is accessed off of Hudson, and there is a detached accessory structure / shed located on the property as well. And the petitioner is proposing to construct a 66 square foot addition to the north side of this shed, and we'll refer to their drawings. They provided some excellent drawings to give an indication as to what they're hoping to accomplish. And that 66 square foot addition, which is outlined in red, is an expansion of that structure, and it's associated with the pool that they plan on putting in adjacent to it. So between this structure and the house, they plan on putting an in-ground pool in. And the shed structure becomes storage for mechanical equipment for the pool and for other aspects of outdoor living. Based on the lot size, the zoning ordinance allows for all the structures on the site, and I'm going to go to this is a comprehensive view that the petitioner provided. Outline of the house in black, the proposed pool in purple blue, and the structure in black with its expansion. All the structures on the site, by ordinance standards, the site currently maintains a non-compliant total lot coverage of 34.3%. Based on the lot size, a maximum allowable coverage is 30%. And the petitioner is proposing to expand, again, that shed type structure and by an additional 66 square feet. So they're seeking to go further above and beyond the maximum allowable lot coverage, and they're seeking a variance to accomplish that. The ordinance allows for all the accessory structures, and you can have up to two. So again, they have an attached garage and they have the shed-like structure. The two of them may be no more than 10% of the lot area. By constructing the addition to the shed structure for the purposes associated with the pool, that addition to the shed structure increases the ground floor area, accessory ground floor area, to 10.6%. Again, above the 10% maximum allowable. So they're seeking a waiver of 0.6%, which equates to 36 square feet from the maximum allowable coverage. And last variance request, and I'm going to switch pages back to the aerial photograph coming back to that first point that was made, in the sense that the site's located on a corner, and due to the orientation of the adjacent lot to the west on Hudson, the existing shed is within the front yard setback, it is, beyond the front plane of the adjacent home. So you can see the step back, the shed is slightly set back further, but that expansion to the north side of this shed accessory structure projects out in front of the front plane of the adjacent home. Because it's a corner lot and no structure can be constructed within that front yard setback, the petitioner needs a variance in order to accomplish that expansion of the shed. I do have some photographs that I think are an excellent point of reference that I can show on the screen during our conversation with the property owner. And I do want to point out that we did not receive any public comment with regard to this request.
All right, any questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, seeing none, the petitioner can state their name and address and go ahead and present their case.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
First of all, thank you for having me here. And I think my dad is.
Who are you? For the record, sorry, just for.
What's that?
Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Joe McGinnis, 1002 South Lafayette Avenue.
Thank you.
And thank you for approving that gas station, by the way. That I drive by there every day, and it's a blessing that you approved it. But anyways, just looking to kind of expand the outdoor space a little bit, the outdoor living. Really, if Joe shows some of the old pictures, it's really was in disrepair in the backyard. The shed, I'm not sure how long it's been there, but just looking to expand the out. Yeah, there's an older picture what it looked like when I moved in 3 years ago. Just want to enjoy the outdoors. I do enjoy to swim. There'd be a kind of it's a Michael Phelps swim machine that would go on there, enable me to get some exercise, which I would have enjoyed over COVID. It was just a little more difficult to get some exercise. Want to put a lunch counter on the end there, and then also use this as a storage type to store some things, possibly a lawnmower or things like that. But yeah, there's a kind of a sketch of it, what I'd like to do. So I don't know. Also, I was going to put a small deck off the back door. Right now, there's steps that are immediately you walk out and you step down. And I think that's a little bit of a danger, but that's not why we're here today. We're trying to talk about expanding the shed to give me a little extra storage and then have a little lunch counter on the end, like a cabana type thing.
Thank you. Mike McGinnis, do you have anything to add?
No, he explained the situation pretty well.
Okay, and may you state your name and address for the record?
I'm getting two feeds, two volume feeds. Is there somebody that can tell me how to shut the other one off?
Yeah, I think you still have the public meeting on. You gotta somehow shut that window out.
Okay.
That's why you're getting the double feed, because you're listening to the meeting before, and it's still on. You're hearing it. So, but
it's all right. We'll move on to any questions for the petitioner. Ms. George?
It looked like in the plan you were going to put your pool equipment in the existing shed. Is that correct?
Yes.
For carbon monoxide reasons, though, pool heaters can't be enclosed. So if you were to put the pool equipment outside where it vents properly, could you use the existing shed as is to do the things you want to do with that additional 36 square feet?
Possibly. I mean, I was wanting to put the equipment in the shed. I mean, the pool is kind of a far out project, financially for me. Really, I just wanted to expand the shed and create the lunch counter cabana type thing there, just to give a little more outdoor space. I wanted to put the pool equipment in there so it wasn't against the house and having the noise reflect out. I was planning on soundproofing the shed. I thought you could put a heater enclosed as long as you had the setbacks inside and vent it. But I don't know. I've never done that. So.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
The specifications for the heater do allow for venting. And also the ordinance, I believe, would allow the vent to be extended through the roof. That's why the vent is inside the shed, and it would go up through the roof rather than out the back of the shed against the fence. Right.
All right. Any other questions for the petitioner? Ms. Sukin.
Did you speak to your neighbor at 415 Hudson about your planned expansion?
Yes, I did. Ray and Nancy, a couple weeks ago, had them over and showed them what I was wanting to do, and they had no issues with it whatsoever. And then Joe and Jen next door, they know what I'm planning on doing, and I assume they got a letter. But I didn't actually talk to them, but I am good friends with them. I just didn't come up. So.
Any other questions? I have one. So what is the practical difficulty of needing these variances? I can understand the setback one, but if we don't pass this, what's the difficulty of having your pool without passing this, and utilizing your backyard with the pool? Because right now you have a small lot, smaller, I should say, and overall lot coverage, you're already maxed at it, and you're just adding on to that. And with the pool, that's just going to create even less green space for rain to go to when for stormwater management.
I guess it's hard to say that there's a hardship. I mean, when you're putting a pool in, that's not a real hardship, but just right now, putting all that equipment into the storage shed, I'd have to carve into the bricks, and my builders highly recommended not cutting into the bricks to create a lunch counter on the edge. He said it's an older building, and it would be difficult, taking out a wall of bricks where the windows or counter would go. And so he proposed putting on a little addition on there, the 60 or 70 foot addition, and building it out of what is that material? Yeah. So basically here, I'd have to take out all of these bricks, and I don't know how long they've been there, but it would definitely weaken the structure. So that's why he proposed doing a hardy board, using some sort of hardy board or extension on there. So.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
So I just want to make sure I have this clear. So the addition on there is actually what you're calling a lunch counter, which, other variations of it, somebody might call it a sun porch or a covered enclosed patio space or something like that. That's the actual addition, right? You're not changing like the brick walls and the the equipment storage area. You're just basically adding on like the equivalent of what some might consider a sunroom attachment. Is that the correct understanding?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just the area in red.
Okay.
And then the roof would be, you know, would the entire roof would be redone. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Sukin? Oh, sorry, Mr. Mike McGinnis, you were going to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to address the lot drainage. Right now, the site flows towards Hudson. And I know that we are decreasing, the lawn area significantly, but we propose to use permeable pavers. And depending on the soil conditions, it depends on how much gravel we put underneath the pavers to absorb any, rainfall.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sukin?
So is this space, this addition, totally closed in, or is it just covered?
It'll be able to close in. It's going to have maybe a metal shutter that you can kind of pull down over the counter window, and there'll be a door that you can open and close. Because eventually in the winter, I'd like to store items in there. So, but those windows, they'll be, it's like a rolling type shutter that will come down. Metal shutter.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, seeing none, before we bring it back to this side, we are short one person for a full board. Unknown if we will get a full board next month or not. So you can either have us vote on your variances tonight or ask to table it till next month. What would you like to do?
I'd say let's try and vote.
All right, thank you. We'll bring it to this side. Is there discussion and or motion? Mr. Moore.
Yeah, I just want to say that I feel like this is just a unique approach to an outdoor space, like a couple of the other ones that we've seen today. And, there's been several instances this summer of something similar. And this is just a unique approach with the roll-up windows and calling it a lunch counter, where in other instances it could be considered a sunroom or a covered patio or something like that. So I'll wait to see if there's other comments.
Anyone else want to comment or make a motion? Ms. Robinson.
I like the fact that they're kind of keeping the historic building, that small little, what they say, a shed. It kind of looks like a miniature carriage house from the time the house was built. And just by adding this little, what they're calling lunch counter I agree with Mr. Moore, just very similar to what we've just already looked at this evening, with just adding on the terrace or the sunroom patio, covered patio kind of thing.
Okay. Anyone else or anyone want to take a swing at this? Mr. Gavin.
I'll move to approve the variances as requested.
Okay, Mr. Moore seconds. Mr. Gavin.
There's multiple things going on here. I think the biggest issue ultimately is going to be the lot coverage issue, because once you decide you're okay with that, the rest of it just kind of flows because it's a corner lot and it's very odd, and the setbacks are just, unmanageable otherwise. But in terms of this ask, in the lot coverage, I know it just expands, an already over lot coverage issue, but it is a relatively minimal ask, and it will be, it won't impact the backyard very much. It's just a small 66 square foot addition, to a small, already fairly small shed, in what is already a relatively, comparatively for the rest of Royal Oak, tiny backyard anyway. So in my mind, it's just, it's fine with me. And once you decide you're okay with that, I feel like the rest of the variances just flow with that. So for that reason, I'm in favor of this.
Mr. Moore.
Nothing further from me.
All right. Anyone else? Anyone? Ms. Sukin?
Well, I feel it's a little different than just a outdoor area because it's totally walled in, but it is such a small space that they're looking to add on. I'm a little conflicted. I'm not so sure how I'm going to vote yet.
Anyone else? Well, I will agree with you, Ms. Zukin. I am conflicted. There's already a lot that's already over coverage. Granted, this is only a minor part, and my bigger worry is the pool when it comes in. But it's also the fact of we're already over and you're pushing over a little bit more. Could this have been done in a different way? I don't know. But I am concerned with it being over. Nothing else I'm concerned with, just it pushing beyond, because at least the other ones that came before us, for the most part, they were all under on lot coverage. I think with the exception of maybe one other one, but yeah, that's my concern too. So I agree with you. Any other comments, Mr. Klatt?
A question for Mr. McGinnis. Like, how large is your garage? It looks, looking at the street view, I see the smaller doors, but it doesn't look like it provides much room for storage. It looks relatively small. Is that a safe assumption? I mean, I'm just looking at your general storage ability on the site as it is.
It's a 2-car garage. I believe it's 20 by 20.
Okay, so that's bare minimum 2-car garage.
Yeah, it's and there's a little post in between. There's 2 doors, so had to get used to pulling into it. That's for sure. So
It seems like this 66 additional square feet would go a long way to help you.
I think I'd enjoy the backyard a little bit more, and my neighbors, well, Ray and Nancy, that it affects the most, they didn't have any issues with it, and you know, I like my neighbors. We all get along really well, and I just enjoy to be out in the yard a little bit more, especially these days. So,
thank you.
All right. Any other comments? All right. Seeing none, we'll move to the votes. We'll start at the top. Ms. Robinson.
I vote yes.
Ms. Sukin.
No.
Mr. Klatt.
Yes.
Ms. George.
Yes.
Mr. Reddy.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
And I will begrudgingly vote no. So it passes though, 6-2. So congratulations. Enjoy your new lunch counter. Alrighty. So on to other business. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Murphy, the meeting schedule and religious holidays for 2022.
Yes, all boards and committees are required to make sure that none of their meetings have any direct conflict with various religious affiliations holidays. And so we always look at our meeting calendar for the upcoming year prior to setting the meeting schedule. And we have given you different calendars to review so that you can determine as well whether you believe there are any conflicts that necessitate rescheduling meetings. Staff did not feel as though there were any, but if the board agrees, there is a suggested motion in the packet to, in essence, keep the meeting schedule to its regular time and place, the second Thursday of each month at 7. And if for some reason we need to move a meeting in the future, we can do so, but that you don't recognize any major conflicts at this point.
Okay. Any discussion upon this or motion? No one want to make a motion then? Mr. Gavin.
I doesn't seem like any, and I guess I can only speak from the Christian perspective because that's what I am. I don't know too many of the other religions, but it seems like the schedule I think would work fairly well as our current schedule of second Thursday at 7 p.m. So I will move to approve the calendar with our regularly scheduled second Thursday at 7 p.m.
Is there a second? Mr. Kletz for the second. All right, we'll go vote. Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Yes.
Mr. Eddy.
Yes.
Ms. George. Mr. Klatt.
Yes.
Ms. Zukin.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So it passes unanimously. Other business, Mr. Murphy.
None at this point, other than I think it would be wise at the end of next month's meeting for the board to consider whether you approved a motion previously to hold your meetings virtually through the end of the calendar year. So it would be appropriate to take up that topic again at the end of next month's meeting, purely for staff purposes, to be able to inform petitioners into January and beyond as to whether they're going to be remote or in person. So keep that in the back of your mind. You can think about it and make a decision hopefully at next month's meeting.
And Mr. Moore.
Mr. Murphy, do we know yet whether the state of Michigan has allowed for any extensions on that? Last, my knowledge was that the ability to hold remote meetings granted by the state ended at the end of this year.
Yes, and I should have made that caveat that we do need to wait till that happens in order to be able to do that. I have a feeling because past precedent is waiting until the last minute to make that decision at that level, that the board could always make the motion contingent upon the ability to do so. And if your ability is taken away, then obviously we would be forced to do in person. But if they waited until the last minute, so to speak, the state had waited, the legislature had waited till the last minute to make it happen, then we could be in place to hold them virtually again.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Klatt, you had a question?
Yeah, Mr. Murphy, you may have mentioned this last month and I probably just forgot, but what are the next steps when it comes to the chair position, vice chair nominations for those positions? And I know we don't have a full board tonight, but what's the next step? How do we nominate?
Yes, and if memory serves me correctly, each year in your bylaws, each year the board votes on chair and vice chair, I believe, at the first meeting in February. And February. So it's I'll say that so long as the vice chair anticipates being present for November and December and January, I don't think there is a need to vote now. You certainly have the ability to vote if you so choose. It may be wise to wait until you have a full board in order to have a vote. You can kind of float along as you have been, or if you decide that you would like to hold a vote prior to your standard February doing so, you can certainly do that any time between now and then.
Mr. Gavin.
Following on that, I saw that the appointments committee met relatively recently. Do we know if they made a recommendation for a new member yet?
No, I wasn't even aware that they met, so thank you for the update.
All right, any other questions and/or motions?
Oh.
Anyone want the mystery motion? Mr. Gavin.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second? I saw Nancy raise her hand for second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Anyone oppose? Nope, no one opposes. Until next
Bedtime.
month.
Oh.
Go
Aye.
vote since that's election next month.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep,
Bye.
take
Have a
care.
good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.